Hi, I'm Grasie Mercedes, and welcome back to Not Blank Enough, a podcast about everyday insecurities and triumphs. Today's episode is with actress, comedian, and podcast host Nicole Byer. We spoke about living with ADHD, body image and confidence, and how she got into comedy. All this and so much more in today's episode titled Not Vulnerable Enough. Hello, Nicole, and welcome to Not Blank Enough.
Hi, Gracie.
I love you. All right, we're just going to get right into it. So, Nicole, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your upbringing. Where are you born? Where are you from?
Ooh, my upbringing. Okay, so I was born in Red Bank, New Jersey, at a hospital at 8:09 a.m. I think it's 8:09. I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up in Central Jersey. If you drive fast, an hour from the city, and then like 45 minutes from the shore, like Sandy Hook and Point Pleasant and like Belmar and shit. But yeah, I grew up in I'm a kid of affirmative action. My dad got a job at AT&T, and it like makes me so angry to no end when people are like, you know, people of color, Black people are getting hired over qualified white people. I'm like, no. He worked with all white people. He was the lone Black person. He had 2 degrees. So he was overqualified for his position that he started at.
Damn.
Yeah, so that's how, you know, I got to live in the upper, or I don't know, maybe it's just like middle class. I don't know. There's a lot of people who went into debt buying Hummers out there. And my mom used to say that. I used to be like, well, why can't I have X, Y, and Z? And she'd be like, you don't know. These people are probably in debt getting this shit for their kids. No, I'm not buying that for you. And I was like, okay.
Do you have siblings?
I have one sister. She's very, very kind, very, very sweet. And the other day I was thinking, I was like, I don't know if she's ever done a single mean thing to somebody. She's truly the nicest person I've ever met in my whole life, and I don't identify with that. Like,
wait, is she older or younger?
She's older.
Why? Do you think you're mean, though?
Sometimes. I thought I had a great poker face, but apparently I do not. I have been told several times that when someone's acting wild, my face is like, oh no.
I can attest to that.
I truly thought I was like, it's internalized, it's inside. And then people have been like, you've got to fix your fucking face. And I'm like, oh no.
I'm like that too, though. I'm guilty of that too, for sure. I make the craziest faces when I see crazy things. I mean, what are you going to do?
To answer your question, I don't think I'm mean now. Growing up, I wasn't the kindest, especially in comedy. I was super critical of women when I first started out, because I came up at a time where on improv teams, there was 1 woman per team or 2 women per team. And then if there was a team with mostly women, you'd be like, that's the girl team, as opposed to how come you don't say boy team when it's all men? Until a certain point, I was like, there's only room for a couple of us at the table. But then, you grow the fuck up and you learn, just build a different fucking table, or leave a seat open and just, let a woman in. And I don't know. I now recommend people for things that I can't do, because I'm like, well, I have some stuff. Why not recommend somebody who maybe doesn't have as much as me or whatever? And I try to bring women with me on tour.
When you say you were critical of women, though, was it did you think they weren't funny?
Maybe I'd be like, oh, she talks too soft and that's not funny. I don't know. You do a show or you see a show and then you have a lot to say about the women. And then you're like, what about this unfunny man who just screamed the whole time?
Right.
Which, could be said about me, because I love to scream.
But you are very funny. Oh, but that is interesting. I do think that's patriarchy and white supremacy shit working, right? When we're going at each other's necks,
yeah,
when we should really be supporting each other,
yeah.
And it's why are we doing this? And they're like, oh, right,
because these men got together and said there's only room for some of you. Kind of being I'm glad I met Sashir when I met Sashir, because if I had not met her, I might have gotten to the mindset that there's only room for 1 Black woman or whatever. But I met her so early when I started doing comedy that I was like, well, why not the both of us?
Right.
Why can't we do everything together? So it was always why isn't there room for 2 of us?
Right. So, okay, going back to childhood, what was school like for you? Were you a popular girl?
No, but I wasn't unpopular. I was funny.
So you were funny even when you were young?
Oh, I came out of the womb sick and thirsty for attention. So elementary school, my mom worked in the school, so like everyone knew my mom. My mom invited everyone to sleepovers, so like everyone, got to come. Even girls, I was like, Mom, I don't like her. And she's like, yeah, well, maybe a lot of people don't like her, so she can come here.
Oh, that's a good mom.
My mom was like so fucking sweet. And we would do crafts and shit. She was like very involved. Like she wanted to be a mom. It never felt like she took it for granted. Like she was always around. And as a kid, you're like, this is overbearing. But then as an adult, I'm like, oh, not really. Like she was just like nice.
There.
It was just niceness.
Yeah.
And then middle school, boy, was I ugly. I look back at pictures and I'm like, oh, all of the choices you made, the Lee press-on nails, the little clip-on ponytail that you thought you were so fucking cute with, the bangs that you tried.
Yeah.
Very zitty.
Girl, I was ugly at that time too. You know what it is? I realized because I have a sister who's 22 years younger than me. So I basically
Wow.
could be, I could basically be her mother. And she never had an ugly stage of her life.
Wait, when was she born?
She was born in 2000.
Oh, yeah. These kids with like Instagram and shit.
Yeah,
Like,
YouTube and shit. They know how to like do their hair and makeup and like look amazing at these young ages. Like she was teaching me like skincare routines when she was like 12.
it's very upsetting.
It's so upsetting. I'm like, do you see this picture of me in 5th grade with an afro? And oh, it was bad.
Yeah.
It's very bad.
Every time I go back to like visit my sister for the holidays, I go through our yearbooks because I had mine in storage for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And all the like, there's one picture of me where I look so angry. I hated taking pictures. I hated being in school, specifically because, well, now I know I have ADHD. My teachers thought I was like a busybody because I was. I was like, these kids are dumb, right? And like, we can talk about this because I'm not on their level. And the teacher's like, no, fucking do your work. Like, chill out. And I was like, I don't want to chill out. I want to talk to you about this. So like my teachers were constantly irritated with me. And I remember every day in 3rd grade, I'd wake up and be like, I have a tummy ache. I can't go to school because Mrs. Hudzinski, I'll put her name out there, hated me. She was so mean to me.
I love that you said her name.
She should be like so old at this point.
So during this time, what was like, was there a blank that kind of sticks out for you?
Yeah. Like I know teachers are tired, especially now because they got a lot on their plates. But back in the day when maybe there wasn't so much on their plates, I just don't understand why like teachers didn't try different ways to help me like succeed. It felt like teachers were like, well, this is how you fucking do it. Sorry about it. You don't fit in this little box. Yeah. I remember SATs, they put me in this big room with a big window and they're like, all right, the test starts now. And then I like looked at the paper and then looked at the window and I was like, look at that big dog. And then I was like, oh my God, that man's just standing there with that dog. Are they waiting for a friend? Are they going to like go to a park? Are they going to have like a play date? And then they're like, the test is done. And I was like, oh no. And I just like truly filled in just random like little bubbles because I was like, I have to finish it. But it was like, I don't know. Ask if someone has a learning problem. Like, put me in a windowless room where, like, I can't get distracted. Or standardized testing doesn't work on everybody.
So almost, like, not tended to enough or not considered enough. Like, I feel like they weren't. I mean, yeah, it was a different time. So maybe, you know, give them some slack. But it does sound like, yeah, no one was like, hey, maybe there's something going on here that we need to further investigate.
Yeah, they're just like, what a spacey, chatty gal. And now I take medication and I'm still a little spacey, still a little chatty, but like I get several tasks done a day.
I mean, you are the busiest person I know. And that's saying a lot because I know a lot of busy people. But when did you find out you had ADHD?
I guess like 7 years ago. Yeah, maybe 5 years ago.
Oh, so pretty recently.
Yeah, not that long ago. I went on this like writer's retreat with a bunch of girls and one of the girls was telling us about her diagnosis and like things that she like couldn't get done and the troubles she was having. And I like almost burst into tears because I was like, that's the troubles I have. I cannot open my mail unless it's a check. Because if you open, so a check, I know I just have to go to the bank. But if it's a bill, I have to visit the website and then do all that stuff. And it's not just one website, it's many different ones. And to me, I'm like, that's a lot of follow through that I don't know if I'm capable of doing right now. And it's really hard to explain like why my brain won't let me, like people without it do not understand, because sometimes I'll like be sitting scrolling through Instagram and I'm like, I should get up and do X, Y, and Z. And then I'm like, I can't. I couldn't possibly. And it's not like I don't want to. And it's not that I'm being lazy. It's like I physically can't. I know the steps that I have to do, but I'm like, I can't. Or sometimes I don't know what the first step is to get to the end goal. And then my brain cannot come around to figure out what I have to do.
Wow.
It's a prison.
Oh, God. But the medication does help. Right?
It does help me slow down and go, okay. So if you have to do this, you got to do that. Like there's been times where before I started taking medication, I'd be driving and I'd be at a stoplight and I'd be like, all I have to do is scroll to this person's name to call them to confirm something. And I'd be like, but like, what if the light turns green and I don't want to be on my phone? And then, well, what if like I get a text and then that distracts me? Ooh, I did get a text. Oh, who is it? Oh, wait, what was I doing? I don't know. And then you like stare into the road and like continue driving. And then 3 hours later, you're like, oh, I was trying to make a phone call.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, shit. I'm like, do I have ADHD? Some of this stuff sounds crazy familiar.
I mean, I think a lot more people have it than, or I don't know. Like, I think a lot of people just deal with things and like manage and function. But for me, medication has been so life-changing. And it's funny because you can take medication where you take 2 a day. And I'm like, how on earth would I remember to take 2 fucking pills a day? I barely remember to take the first one. So I take like a time-released one.
Oh, okay.
But the drop-off is a little hard. So at like 5 p.m., I'm like, I'm tired. I'm hungry. I don't know where anything is. I've lost my keys and my phone.
I feel like 5 p.m. is a good time to end your day anyway.
Yeah, but sometimes you're on set and you're like, oh, what are lines?
Right.
What are these? So like I have to learn my lines the night before. Like I really have to. And that's why like in the morning, like in hair and makeup, sometimes I'll be like, can you run this with me, please? And it's so it like gets in my bones. So like if that scene's at like 5, it's like in the bones and I can't like really fuck it up.
Yeah.
It's a struggle.
Okay. So you explained your elementary kind of junior high experience. And then was high school any different? What was high school like?
So my mom was like kind of overprotective. So she didn't really like, I wasn't like allowed to really go to parties. And every time I went to one, somehow I'd like do something to get myself in trouble. Then I'd be grounded again. I was always in trouble. And I did track and field. I did the Fat Girl event. People don't realize this, but we come in fucking clutch and we can win a fucking meet. Shot put. And I did the discus. I wasn't as good as at the discus. But shot put, I was like pretty good. And my coach.
Wait, what's shot put? What is that?
Shot put is an 8-pound steel ball that you hold against your neck and then you throw with one arm.
Yes.
And the first time I threw it, I hit like 30 feet or something. And my coach was like, what the fuck? That's really great. And then he was like, if you would just train, you would be like a state champion. And I was like, I'm sorry. I just joined the musical. I have to sing in Godspell.
Never mind.
And I just didn't want to work at it. It was just like not for me. But I had the little shoes. I still have my Letterman jacket from it, which is so lame.
This is in New Jersey still, yeah? You stayed in New Jersey?
Oh, yeah. Middletown, New Jersey, baby. Middletown High School South, home of the Eagles.
Home of the Eagles. So in high school, that's when you got into musical theater. So did you always want to be an actor or did you figure it out then?
No. So I wanted to be like an illustrator. I wanted to write children's books.
Can you draw?
Not well.
I bet you can.
Yeah, I used to draw a lot growing up. And then I took some art classes in high school and I was like, oh, shit. Everyone seems to be better at this than me. And again, I was like, I don't want to work on this. So I didn't really. And then my mom, I guess it was sophomore year, she was like, you fucking talk a lot. Why don't you try out for the musical or for the play? This is like the fall play. And then got in the play. Everyone who auditioned got in. It was one of those things. So it wasn't special. We did short one acts by Christopher Durang, and I was in this one called DMV Tyrant with Jim Schumacher, who's very funny. And I don't think he acts anymore. Maybe he does. I don't know. But yeah, I just remember like in rehearsals, people laughing and feeling like good and like kind of powerful. Like I was like, oh, I am making you laugh. Like I am doing this on purpose. I am saying these lines in a way that maybe if someone else said it, not as funny. And then on stage during the performance, and when like a whole audience of people laughed, I was like, well, I have to do this for the rest of my life.
You got bit by the bug.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah.
And I remember it viscerally. I was so nervous. And then like our little techies or stagehands brought out the little metal desk that I sat at. And I had my hair in this like fake little bun. And then I can't remember the first line of it, but like the first line that people laughed, I was like, give me more.
That's incredible. And so from there on, you were like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. So like track really took a backseat. And then the only reason I was allowed to do both is because they were like, well, she comes in first. We need those points for the meet. So I didn't have to go to practice every day because I'd have play practice. So I would go to play practice. And then the days I didn't have play practice, I'd be like, I have play practice. And I wouldn't go to track and field practice. And then I would never do our warm-ups. I would never do any of our strength training. And I would just go to the meets and usually get first or second, unless it was like the states. Then I get like fourth, fifth. And then sometimes I get way, way lower because like I didn't try.
But the fact that they even let you be on the team without doing
they
anything else.
They needed points.
They're like, whatever you want. And were you dating in high school?
That's so funny. No, are you kidding? I'm famously single. And I have been my whole life. No, I was, so like me and my sister, I think we were one of 10 Black people in high school. And I don't know. I was not the cup of tea. I was also fat and zitty and
zitty.
I had such bad acne. I still have pretty bad acne. It sounds like I'm being like down on myself, but like if you have like 100 like traditionally beautiful, and I'm not saying I'm not beautiful, I think I'm very beautiful, but if you have like 100 traditionally beautiful white girls to choose from who are like tan and blonde, I'd probably choose one of them over the zitty fat Black girl who's like, I was like, oh my God, I love you. So wait, but did you back then feel that you were beautiful or now in retrospect? I would say it was like 60-40 growing up. It was like 60 not feeling pretty, 40 feeling pretty. And then I hit like at like 18, 19, 20-ish. I was like, why am I wearing, pants in the summer? Like, why am I wearing a sleeve all the time? Like, I can show my body. People know I'm fat either way. I don't care. And it's ironic because like I had lost a bunch of weight after I'd gone to college. So I was like smaller than I had been. But then, I don't know, like something happened in that time period where I was like, I don't really care anymore. I think I'm very pretty. And if you don't like it, like that's a you problem, it's not a me problem.
Yeah. That's really admirable though, because most kids at that age, you feel ugly and gross regardless, right? Even like the pretty ones feel like they're ugly and gross.
Yeah, but at 18, I was living in New York City. I was in theater school. I was blowing my money on things I shouldn't be blowing my money on, having all of the fun, like hooking up with people in bars. Like, yes. I was like, you couldn't tell me shit. Like, I was shoplifting from Old Navy. Like, I looked... I looked so fucking good, okay?
Okay, we're going to get back to the shoplifting at Old Navy. But in high school, was there a blank that you can remember that you feel you were like either experiencing or grappling with? Because it sounds like you were like a very like healthy high school kid. I don't know. I feel like I was so painfully insecure in high school and thought I had a huge gap that people would make fun of. I didn't really know how to do my hair yet. I was, no one wants to hear a girl complain about being too skinny, but I was too fucking skinny. Like I was like trying to like gain weight because I felt like I was called like they called me like the Ethiopian kid because I was just this like tall, skinny.
I really don't mean to laugh. It's like that's so mean.
It's so mean. Like, and so I was like painfully insecure. I didn't look people in the eye until like late high school, early college. Like all these things. But you sound like you were just like, I'm the shit and this is great. Like, where'd you get that confidence from?
I couldn't tell you. People ask me that a lot. They're like, how are you so confident? I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I like walked out of my mom's pussy, just like here to be heard. I always thought I was 5'7", but I guess I'm 5'5", and I would wear these giant Steve Madden platforms that were like 4 inches tall. So I was like almost 6 foot, like 200 plus pounds. Like I just didn't care. I don't know. I dressed the way I wanted to, and I did things I wanted to. I don't know. I like smoked cigarettes. Like I was just like obsessed with like being not cool, but like kind of bad. I was like, I'll try anything once. But also I like was not popular. I just kind of was like friends with a lot of people and was funny. But I honestly, it might have just been the ADHD where I was like, I can't dwell in feeling awkward. I've got to put on my giant platforms and see if I can walk in those. Yeah, I don't know. And then also like it was like pretty fulfilling. Like I was doing track and
you had a lot going on.
Yeah, and I was in the plays, and I had like good friends and would cut school a lot, like go to the beach.
So whether it was like family, friends, school, did you not just have any insecurities at that time? Was there nothing you were kind of like?
No, I had insecurities. It's really hard to explain where it's like you can look in the mirror and go, ugh, I have this nasty zit. My hair won't lay down the way I want it to. This perm is really awful. Well, I'm just going to put on this like purple shirt. It's my favorite fucking color. I'm going to slam on these platforms and go to school. And maybe I won't stay the whole time. I don't know yet. Yeah, I just was like, the world is my fucking oyster. Also, like, I was not there to learn. I was there to have like the nicest time possible.
Did you have good grades or no?
Not really. All of my like progress reports used to say like she doesn't work to like her full potential or like all of her abilities or whatever. I had one English teacher in 7th grade who like hated me. Yeah, I truly did not go to school to learn in the slightest. There was, I don't know what grade it was, but I was like, I don't think I need to bring a textbook to class anymore. So I wouldn't bring books to I would bring like a binder, but then I would just like buddy up to the person next to me and be like, you want to share with me? Because I was like, why am I hearing this heavy fucking book?
Yeah.
Well, why?
No, it makes sense.
And then my mom would have to cover them. And then I would take the covers off because I was like, why is it my job to keep this book nice? Buy a new book, public school.
Oh, I remember those damn covers we had to put on. Okay. So I'm trying to think of a blank for you back then.
Well, I don't know. My mom died, so there's that.
Oh, God.
She died junior year.
Junior year of high school she died.
Yeah. But I still had fun because like, so yeah, sad. Okay, boo-hoo. But then I discovered my dad didn't know very much. So I would print out fake permission slips to go to the city and we'd cut school. God. And I'd be like, can I have money? Because like, I need money and not a check because the period ended where they accept checks, which is like an insane lie. But he would just like give me cash and be like, I guess you're in New York today.
Oh my God. So your mom passed away and then you start playing your dad.
Basically. Yeah.
Oh. You play by your own rules though, in general.
Well, the worst thing someone can say to you is no. And I learned that at a very early age that it's like, all right, so if someone says no to this, you can negotiate. Yeah. I learned at a very early age if like somebody goes, no, you can negotiate. Like the best example I can give you is, so we had a pretty decent sized backyard and I kept begging for a pool. I was like, I want a pool. I love swimming. Can we have a pool? My mom finally said, no. And I said, why? And she said, because I would tell you couldn't go swimming at night, but you would line up your stuffed animals around the pool and be like, I wasn't alone. And I was like,
oh my God. Yeah.
You got me, gal. Well, I make up my own rules.
You make up your own rules.
Because I'm like, technically I'm not alone. There's stuff. And when she said that, I was like, fuck. Of course I would do that. That was my first plan.
You're very resourceful.
Yeah. When I worked a minimum wage job in New York, I was getting paid $7.50 a fucking hour. And we lived in a 4th floor walk up. And I did the math and I was like, we could all pay $500 if we rent out one room for $750. And we were like, everyone in the apartment was like, this room isn't worth $750. And I was like, I know. But Columbia kids, because we lived right by Columbia, I was like, their parents will just pay for it. They're happy to not live on campus. We can charge more because they don't know how much our fucking rent is. We'll just charge them more because it's from their parents. So we did that for a very long time.
You're like such a hustler. I love it.
I'm resourceful, I think. And I'm like good at like looking at big picture things and being like, well, here's the scam I need to run to get what I need. I don't know. It wasn't like a scam, but
you're resourceful, but you're also like, you're not afraid to break the rules. And I think I'm so in awe of that because I am such a rule follower. I've always been a fucking nerd. I was like, I did very well in school and I was terrified of ever getting in trouble. Mostly because I was afraid of what my mom would do if I got in trouble. My mom was super strict when I was younger because she was a teen mom and kind of had to be and didn't know what the hell she was doing. She was like learning as I was like we were almost like growing up together. And so, yeah, like these things that you're saying to me, I'm like, oh my God, I'd be so nervous to like, they like make me nervous for you.
I mean, I had an older sister who was constantly nervous for me and being like, don't do that.
Yes.
Like my sister. So after my mom died, for whatever reason, we did not get my sister another car. She just drove my mom's minivan. And then I had a little Mitsubishi Mirage and we were in the same grade and we had the same homeroom. So she would wake up and wake me up. She'd be like, Nicole, I'm leaving to go to school. And I'd be like, okay. And then my dad would be like, and I'm leaving to go to work. And I'd be like, okay. And then I get a text message from my friend Tony, who lived up the street, to be like, are you coming to get me? And I'd be like, be there in a second. And then I'd like slap clothes on. And then I was late to school every single day, even though me and my sister lived in the same house.
Oh my God. Oh my, your poor sister.
Every single day I was late. Yeah. And the only reason I made it to school is because I had to go pick up Tony. If I didn't, I'd be like, nothing's tethering me to this school. But yeah, she spent a lot of time being like, I remember when we were little, we went to the Lincroft pharmacy. And I remember this like very viscerally. There was chapstick. And I was like, I want this chapstick. So my sister was like, take this chapstick. And she said, no. And I said, put it in your pocket. And she was like, I don't want it. And I was like, we need this chapstick. And then she took it. And then we got in the car and I was like, time to use it, which is dumb. Cause like my mom was like, where did you get that chapstick from? And I was like, I needed it. We put it in our pockets. So we had to like go back to the store and tell the fucking cashier that we like took the chapstick. And my sister was so upset. She was like, I didn't even want it.
Oh, wait, go back. Who's Tony?
Oh, Tony Sincata. He just lived up the street from me. He was just
your friend.
Yeah, like just a family friend. His mom recently sent me the full performance of Godspell from high school. And I just watched my performance and wow, she's a star.
Oh wow. I want to see that. Can we put that on the internet, please?
In full jest. I had terrible glasses and the performance is wild. Yeah, like my mom had several very good friends in our like development and Jerry Sincata, his mother, was one of them.
Jerry Sincata, okay. So now, that was high school. Where'd you go to college?
Oh, I went to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. You call it AMDA, or some people call it SCAMDA. It's a 2-year conservatory that was like wholeheartedly bullshit.
In New York.
In New York. 70th and Broadway. One of the buildings they had was called the Ansonia, the historical Ansonia. And I learned nothing but like how to drink. We would go to this place called the Blarney Stone on 47th and 8th, and they didn't card. And I would get Long Island iced teas, light on the ice with a splash of Coke. And I'd have 2 or 3 of those and lose my mind.
Oh my God. I know exactly the bar you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's closed.
Yeah.
I don't think it's opened anymore.
Maybe, yeah. That would make sense. And you were there for 2 years living in New York now.
Yeah.
And so you didn't learn anything.
I learned more about acting at UCB, like actually doing things.
When did you start at UCB?
I started doing UCB in 2010 or 2008 or maybe 9. I don't really remember, but I'd been out of school for a couple years and I truly just Googled, what do actors do when they don't act? And it was like improv. So that's literally how I found improv.
Oh, wow. And were you good at it right away because you're so funny?
Yes and no. So like 101, killed, crushed. But then in 201, you like learn game and game. So game is like the funniest part of a scene that you were literally making up on your feet. And then a second beat of a game is the similar thing that makes it funny, but it's either like a time dash later in the scene or whatever, or analogous. It's like different people, same funny thing. And I had a really hard time with second beats because I was like, well, why? Why am I returning to this?
Why are we doing this
thing? Where like
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know why the scene is funny. It just is.
Uh-huh.
And then 301, you like learn parts of the Herald or whatever. And then like the structure is hard for me because it's nothing's tangible. So like for me, sometimes it was really hard to follow along. But then I would just like learn tricks. Like I would sometimes, I like do little finger taps sometimes to help me remember stuff. Okay. So like if somebody says something in the opening that I want to remember, I'll like tap my finger.
What is that? Is that like an ADHD?
I don't know.
Oh, that's just something how does it help you remember though?
It might be just a tick. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. My brain works. When I say it's a prison, it's a fucking prison.
But by doing the tapping, it actually makes you remember?
Yeah. I could like remember a couple of things from the opening. So when someone initiated, and I would always try to initiate because sometimes if someone initiated, I'd be like, I don't know what you want me to do because you're initiating with a purpose. You're saying this first line for me to respond to the idea that we both heard from the opening, but I don't remember. So I would always try to initiate, or I try to think of an initiation and then try to remember 3 or 4 ideas from the opening. And it was just like in my head a lot. But I was like, good. I was funny. I was never not funny. Or no, I mean, there was times where I'm not funny, but I don't want to say that. But improv was just like, it was a nice, magical thing. And then that's how I met Sashir Zameda, who's my dear best friend. And we work a lot together. And I'll forever be grateful for that time in my life.
It's funny because even when you talk about improv, there's definitely a theme in your life where you and like traditional structure, rules, boundaries kind of thing don't really get along. And so you figure out the Nicole way of doing it. But you succeed at it every time.
Not every time, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, if you just do this sounds like Kim Kardashian. It's like, just do the work. Nobody fucking wants to work. But like so Sashir and I auditioned together to do Herald Night, which is the improv teams at UCB. And we auditioned together, did our scenes together because we're the funniest together. And then at the callback, they separated us, which is like, but don't you want us to succeed? So they separated us. And then we didn't get put on a team. And we were like, oh, rats. And then me, Sashir, and another girl, Keisha, had been this team called Doppelganger. I was like, well, let's not do a Herald and let's not do a montage where it's just like a collection of scenes. So I did some research and found this thing called a deconstruction, which is essentially whatever you want it to be, but also has a little bit of a structure to it. So we started working on that. And then I was like, well, let's do cage match, which is like 2 improv teams go head to head and then the audience votes on the funniest team. And a lot of the house teams had like very long running reigns or whatever. And I was like, well, let's do it. I think it'll be fun. So then we submitted and then we won for like 8 weeks, which was like unheard of. And then we like got our own run at the theater. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I was like, I don't know. I believe in us. Let's just fucking do it. So,
shit. Yeah, you're like a great example of the power of believing in yourself and like believing you can do something.
I just firmly believe if one door doesn't open, this world isn't just one door. It's 1,000 fucking doors. And like when I'll do like Q&As at colleges sometimes, and people will be like, well, how do I get into acting? And I'm like, nobody asked for Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl used to raise web series before Insecure. Nobody asked for Broad City. These women just made these things. And then I think Abby and Alana for their like season finale, like season 2 or something, like reached out via someone at the theater for Amy Poehler to be in it. And then Amy ended up producing their show. So it's like, had they not asked Amy, maybe that didn't happen. Like, so like there's something to shooting your shot, or if this doesn't work out, figuring out what does work out for you. And it's just like, I don't know, not giving up or whatever. And then also, I just believe in myself. Like, I like me and I think I'm really funny. Sometimes people are like, you laugh a lot at your jokes on stage. I'm like, yeah, man. If I didn't think it was fucking funny, I'd be at home. Like, I think it's funny.
I love that. So then, okay, that's actually a great segue to like now. Like Nicole Byer today has a lot of fucking jobs. How many podcasts do you have now? 4?
I have 4.
8? 4. And then how many TV shows do you have?
I think 3. Wait, I have Wipeout. Nailed It, and Grand Crew. Yeah, 3 right now.
3. So 3 TV shows, 4 podcasts. You also have a Netflix special.
I do. BBW, Big Beautiful Weirdo.
Which is so fucking funny. Y'all better watch it.
Thank you.
If you haven't already. And you still tour, right? You still do stand-up.
Yeah, I took a little bit of a step back from touring just because I was like, so after I did my special, I was like, what do I want to talk about? Because I had an hour that I had been doing, and then the pandemic happened. So then I took out like 20 minutes of my old stuff and then put in like newer stuff. And that newer stuff would have been in the newer touring stuff. But then I was like, I don't mind burning it now. But then I was just like, I don't know what I want to talk about. I have no idea. I've been inside. I've been out a little bit. I've talked about being out a little bit. I think I need to live a little. So I've just been trying to like live, and I've been doing sets around LA, and it's like fun again. Because what's the point of doing stand-up if you're not having fun?
So tell me a little bit about your like first steps into working. Like, what was your big break?
I thought my big break was going to be 30 Rock. I was in the tag of an episode. So like the credits are rolling and there's Nicole for 30 seconds. But that was the first time I was on a set, and I was so nervous. And I just like, and my scene was with Tina Fey, and we like got our hair done next to each other, and she was like nice and said like a couple words to me, and I was like, oh my God, what if I do bad? What if Tina Fey hates me? And it's like, she doesn't care. It's a tag of the episode. She like literally they'll just cut it. But they let me improvise a little bit, which was like very kind, knowing full well that they were not going to use it. It's 30 seconds. And then like the last time I improvised something, like the whole crew laughed, and I was like, oh my God, they see hilarity every day. I'm funny. So, and then I was like, I'm going to blast off. And I did not. But then I got Girl Code maybe like a year later or a couple months later. And then that's when things like started.
Yeah, it was so huge, that show.
Yeah, it was. I keep getting like things where people don't necessarily believe in it at the beginning. Grand Crew is literally one of the first projects I've done where like a network was excited about it, promoted it, and wanted people to see it. Girl Code just dropped and happened to be popular. Nailed It just dropped and people happened to find it. And then TBS, they believed in Wipeout and they like promoted it. I shouldn't say Grand Crew is the very first one, but I had a show on MTV called Loosely Exactly Nicole that like they put up a billboard that said, when Nicole wants a billboard, she gets one. And I was like, what's the air date? What's the show called? Why did you put up a billboard with just my face and no information for people?
No, for real, they did that?
Yes.
That's so dumb.
Yes.
And this is for MTV.
Yeah. They kept being like, we need you to tweet and live tweet and make videos, da-da-da. And I was like, this is all well and good, but like, if the show is a house, the people who follow me are already in the house, you know? So like, how do we get people who don't live in the house to come into the house? And I remember I said that to an exec and she went, huh? And I was like, huh? Oh my God. Oh my God. It was wild. I felt very stuck in a way where I was like, well, I don't know how to do your job for you. I don't have access to the stuff that you do, but like, I think if you promote this show, people will like it. It's a very, very broad comedy. And that's like what I set out to do. And it's like zany and silly.
Was there ever a time during like the beginning of your career where you doubted what you were doing or had any trouble like breaking in or getting an agent, or did it all come kind of seamlessly?
It's not seamless. I a lot of times fall. I think I'm like one of those people who like kind of fails up sometimes. So like I was looking for a manager, and then I got one from Doppelganger, having someone see us perform, and that person didn't get me at all. I made a tape for Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, that pilot. And my manager at the time watched my tape and said, this is too big. This is too broad for TV. And then in my brain, I was like, how am I fucking supposed to know that? You picked me up from the stage. Yes, I'm taking like acting on camera classes, but that was like 4 years ago. at a school that like didn't actually teach me anything. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And then he's like, whatever, they needed it yesterday, I'll send it in. I was like, cool, sounds like not a vote of confidence. So he sent it in, and then I went in, and I wish I could remember the casting director's name, but she was at ABC. It was like 60th in Columbus. And she had like quotes printed out on papers all over the office. And I like walk in, and she was like, before we do anything, do you get told to bring it down and pull back? And I said, all the time. Story of my life. I'm too big. They said this tape was too big, but here I am. And she was like, yeah, well, a lot of people can't do what you do. You have a lot of energy, and it's wild. She was like, don't pull back.
Oh,
always go as big as you think, because I can see that you're funny, and I can make your performance smaller, and I can get a tape that is acceptable to send to producers. And I said, okay. And I never forgot that. And she was right. Like, I always just, and I've learned how to make a tape now, but sometimes I will do a tape where I'm like doing a little bit extra, and then I'll bring it down a little bit to be like, I do have levels. But yeah, that stuck with me a lot, like in the beginning, because it was like, don't do what you think people want. Just do you. And somebody, if they like you, will help you. And I've like had Julie Ashton, who's a casting director out here. We have many pilots worked on tapes together to get them to be like what she like thought the producers wanted. And I'm working with her now on something which is like really, really great. But like you just find these people in the industry who are like, because it looks good for them when they break you. So it's just like, don't change who you are and what makes you special. And I'm a lot.
Well, two things. One, like, thank God, right? That woman said that to you and it stuck with you, because that's clearly what you're like, why you're successful now in this business is because you are you and you're fucking funny. And whether that's quote unquote big or whatever is another thing. But two, I feel like that is something I find that I hear a lot now, because I think I had the opposite problem where I would play things too small because I was always afraid of being too big. And then got the note of play it big, we can always pull you back, right? But if you start small, people think that's all you got, and then they don't really even try to work with you. Versus if you make a choice and actually are big or do the thing that you want to do, then they're like, oh, well, you made a choice and we can like play with this. But to bring it to the theme of this podcast, maybe one of your blanks is like not small enough or not like tame enough, or it just sounds like you're such a bigger than life person. I can see how sometimes that might get in your head, or maybe other people say things to you about it that be like, what the fuck? But then you also don't give a shit in a sense. Like you still do you, which is what I love. But how do you feel about that?
I mean, I can't not do me. It's one of those things where like I have gone into auditions where I'm like, okay, she's like a little darker. She's a little like, okay, here's a prime example. I went in for Louis. It was just like a bystander of like an accident, and the line was just like, help, help, he's been hit. And I was like, help, help, he's been hit. And the casting director threw her head back and laughed. She went, wow, you're funny. You're not going to get this, but you are funny. And I was like, oh. And I remember crying after that because I was like, this curse of being too funny. But I've just like learned, I'm like, okay, you just have to like get into a different mindset. And then my voice is a little dumb, so.
Your voice is not dumb. Shut up.
Little. Yeah, I mean, one day I'll do a drama, but it's hard.
And then Grand Crew, I mean, the part was basically written for you, right?
It was.
Tell us about that.
My first Herald team was Phil's team. I was put on his team. It was called Dance Break. And Phil and I, we rarely did scenes together. Phil is also a slow burn. So like in improv, people are always like, pow, 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 pow. So like Phil would step out, have like an idea, and like get immediately tagged out, which was like annoying. And then Phil and I started doing like 2-prov together sometimes. And then we wrote a pilot together. And then he was like on Brooklyn, went to Insecure, and then was like, I wrote this pilot. I don't know if it's going to go, but there's a part in it for you. Would you do it? And I was like, I'm a ride or die. I love you so much. Of course. And then Yeah, I think I had done a pilot the year before that didn't get picked up. And then I was like free and clear to do it. And then I like read the script and I was like, oh boy, I love it. And he's like, and Nikki's like pretty light in this episode, in the pilot. But he's like, but she's going to be like part of the group now that I know that I have you. And I was like, okay, cool. And then like our second episode is like a repilot. Like I love our first episode, but I do think the second one is just like, oh, that's what our show is. And I think it just gets better and better. And I just feel so like lucky because this is not how things happen. You don't get to work with your friends all the time. You don't get a part just offered to you. You have to go through like a fucking like circus ring or hoops or whatever. And like the network has to approve. Producers have to approve. The studio has to approve. The director has to, like, so many people have to agree on you that like sometimes it's like an uphill battle and almost impossible. But then just to be like, everyone to be like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we want her to do it was just like, I don't know, felt really good. And it felt like I worked really hard and was being rewarded.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, and then to be able to be on this show, like how fucking lucky are we?
It's, I say to people all the time, I'm like, it's not a job. Like, yeah, we're like capturing things on camera, but like we laugh so much. And I genuinely like everybody from like hair and makeup to the grips to like everybody. Like our fucking Crafty's great. They bought me almonds that I like.
They bought me dried mangoes that I like and wrote my name on them and put them in my trailer.
Yeah, they like just refilled my trailer all the time. Like our PAs were great. All of our like day players were so fun. Like it was just it was a dream.
Such a dream, and we get to do it again, which even bigger.
I know.
Dream.
I'm so excited.
I can't wait to go back to work.
I know.
Oh God, I love you so much. Okay, so we have to name this episode.
Okay.
And we didn't have that many blanks for you, but I'm wondering if there's something that sticks out for you that's like overarching, like Nicole Byer, the not blank enough. What is this blank?
Let's see. I mean, I have a hard time not being performative sometimes. It's like a people-pleasing type thing where I'm like, oh, I want you to think I'm funny and I want you to like me. And it takes me a minute for like when I like start a friendship or something to be a normal human being who's not doing bits.
Not normal enough. Oh,
yeah, not normal enough.
I know what you mean though. Like, yeah, like it takes you a second. Now, what do you think that's about?
Oh, I think that's about my abandonment issues. People I love have just poof died. And
oh my God.
And I think I learned at an early age that like when you're funny or if you're personable and likable, people tend to like come back and stick around. So sometimes I'm like if I'm cranky or tired, I'll mask it. And I've learned with like very, very close friends that I spend a lot of time with that like sometimes I'm not masking it well and I'm just being an asshole. And if I just was able to go, hey, I feel cranky right now and like put my little guard down, that
vulnerable.
Yes, vulnerable. So
vulnerability, not vulnerable enough.
Yes, not vulnerable enough.
I like this vulnerable thing because I think this hits on something that a lot of people, all of us struggle with, right? Vulnerability it's a hard thing to have. I know I struggle with it. And I think people deal with it in very different ways, right? So I run away. My therapist says I do the flight thing where it's like, oh, you're going to hurt my feelings, so I'm out. Like, I'm just like, bye, leave me alone. Whereas it sounds like you are either going to try to mask it, like with your comedy and your humor and your bits, or on the flip side, you might just be like we were saying, you were like cranky. Instead of just being like, hey, I'm cranky, I'm having a bad day, you like try to mask it. And they're like, no, I can tell. It's like, bullshit.
No, I can tell you're just being straight up mean.
Yeah. And so vulnerability, yeah, that's a huge one. And then you talked about, the abandonment issues, and that's also part of that, right?
Yeah.
Like putting your guard down.
Yeah. And being like, it's okay for people to leave your life. That's life.
Which, real quick, one of your biggest podcasts, Why Won't You Date Me? Where did that come up? What was the idea behind that?
That literally came up because John Gabris, who has a podcast on HeadGum called High and Mighty, who is infinitely funny, he was like, Byer, you got to start a podcast. And I was like, I don't want to. I don't really like podcasts. And he was like, no, listen, people will come to your live shows because they get to hear you in a way that they've never heard you. What, you just talk about sex or something, like why you're single. And I was like, okay. So literally it's John Gabris, my friend, who gave me the idea. And yeah, it was fun to talk about like sex and dating and stuff. I've since slowed my roll because I'm not trying to die in these streets from COVID. And I just had it. It was really bad and I did not like it and I do not want it again. So she's going to be careful. But yeah. And then people, they're like, you're so vulnerable on that. And I'm like, am I? Or am I just talking about a thing that a lot of people go through? A lot of people have bad dates. A lot of people have bad dating experiences. It's not a monolith. So it's like, these aren't deep, dark things. It's like everyone's been rejected by a person and everybody's lusted after somebody. So it's like, yeah, I'll talk about that. That's fine.
All right. Well, that also ties into not vulnerable enough, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Nicole, thank you. This was lovely.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on Not Blank Enough. And we're going to call it Not Vulnerable Enough. And we all need to be watching Brene Brown and figuring out how to be more vulnerable, I think.
Who's Brene Brown?
You don't know who that is?
No.
Oh my God, this is perfect.
Who is she? Who is this?
She is this lovely white woman who has she has a famous TED Talk about vulnerability, and now she has a series on, what is it on? I believe it's on Netflix or HBO called Atlas of the Heart.
Oh.
And it expands. It's about communication and it expands on vulnerability. And it's really hard for me to say that word. Vulnerability. But yeah, that's so interesting that you haven't seen that, because it was like the huge thing that everyone like was talking about and watched for a while. My therapist told me to watch it like years ago.
See, I don't know anything about popular stuff. Like the book Lean In. Someone said something about like lean in, and I was like, why are we all leaning in? What do you mean? And they're like, oh, like you lean in to like be heard. And I was like, what? And I was with a group of friends and they're like, you're so loud you don't need to lean in. I was like, oh, okay, thank you.
Leaning in, but that makes it even better. That makes it even more perfect. That's what we're naming this episode. Is there anything you want to promote before we go?
Yeah, watch Grand Crew on Peacock and Hulu. My special, Big Beautiful Weirdo, it's on Netflix. Nailed It is on Netflix. Wipeout's on TBS. My other podcasts, or my other ones, this isn't mine. I have podcasts, Why Won't You Date Me? Best Friends with Sashir Zameda, Newcomers with Lauren Lapkus, and 90 Day Bae, where we talk about 90 Day Fiancé with Marcy Jarrow.
Jesus Christ, woman. You are the hardest working woman in Hollywood. Thank you for taking the time to do this podcast. I love you. And I
love
will
you.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Not Blank Enough. You can learn more about our guest in the show notes. Please subscribe to Not Blank Enough wherever you get your podcast. And if you like what you hear, consider leaving a rate and review. You can also follow us on Instagram at Not Blank Enough Pod. Our show today was executive produced by Grasie Mercedes and Dave Hill, and produced by Douglas Sarine and Colleen Beasley. Not Blank Enough is a Gumption Pictures production.